only are you able to stand up and be able to just survive, but Allah can make you thrive. And Allah can even put peace in your heart. Because you know, as that beautiful quote says, what can my enemies do to me? My paradise is in my heart. And this is really the power of belief. This is the power of a believer, is that no matter what they go through in their life, if their paradise is in their heart, no one can take it away from them, no matter what happens to them. But this brings me to the final point, which is, how do we find that refuge? The last point, in the last consequence of making this life their primary concern, Allah joins your affairs, Allah gives you contentment in the heart, and Allah makes this life come to you even if it hates to. That this life is in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't get this life by running after it. Allah makes this life come to that person. Now, how do I find that refuge in the middle of the storm? The answer is, it is only in the nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what is it that keeps us from getting closer to Allah? A lot of times, as I said, it is despair. Shaitan will come to us anytime we mess up, anytime we slip, and he will make us believe that we're not good enough. Or he'll make us think that there's no hope, right? Just give up. One of the statements which I hate so much is statements like, she might as well take off her hijab. You know, this kind of attitude that the girl, this sister couldn't be perfect. This sister does X, Y, Z. She might as well take off her hijab. She might as well just give up. That's what we're saying when we say things like that. We're saying you might as well give up. Just stop trying. We are enabling shaitan against our sister when we say things like that. When we tell people, give up, you're not good enough, that's shaitani logic. That is completely signed off by shaitan. Allah never says you're not good enough. Allah never says that. قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَصْرَفُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Say, oh my slave who have wronged your own selves, you have transgressed against your own self. Allah is not addressing the ones who are perfect. Allah is addressing the ones who have messed up. Why? Because we all mess up sometimes, because we're human. That's part of the design. We have to remember that Allah, if Allah wanted us to be sinless, He would have made us angels. If Allah wanted us to be perfect, He would have made us angels. There is a purpose in the design that Allah made. And that is this, and we know this from many ahadith. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that if we were not to sin and repent, Allah would take us off the earth and bring a people who would sin and repent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to repent. He wants us to come back to Him. He wants to hear our voice. What would be the benefit of having this type of imperfect design, imperfect within the human? You see, when I slip, and when I realize my own imperfection, what does it do inside of me? What it does, or what it's supposed to do, is it's supposed to humble me. And it's supposed to make me realize how much I need Allah. Because here's the problem. We human beings, we have this tendency, sometimes when we see ourselves, you know when a person is like first like on top of their deen, right? Like when they first start to practice, either they're a revert, convert, newly religious, you know what I'm saying? And this is like when you're kind of in your spiritual high. And this is when you're on top of your tahajjud, you know what I'm saying? You're on top, you're started wearing hijab, you're dressing, you're involved, you're just, you're kind of like spiritual, iman high, right? It's almost like being on spiritual steroids, right? You're like powerful, right? Or you feel like you are. Now, what comes along with that state typically? What comes along with that state typically is something called self-righteousness. Unfortunately, isn't it? When someone is like, in that like high, unfortunately, one of the pitfalls of that high is that I start to feel proud of myself, and I start to look down on others who are not, or who do not seem to be doing what I'm doing. That's one of the pitfalls of seeing myself like awesome, Seeing myself as really religious. So then what happens? Well, what happens is this is a temporary state. This high, by definition, is temporary. No Iman high is permanent. Iman, as the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, goes up and down. This doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, it means you're human. But the key is that when you go down in your Iman, this is where shaitan is going to come at you with hopelessness. You see, here's what happens. So I'm in my high, right? And we've all gone through this probably, right? At some point in our life, where we're in our spiritual Iman high. But then what happens eventually is I slip in one way or another. Either I commit a sin that, or even a big sin, or I'm just not as motivated. Something happens and I am no longer at that high and I start to come down. This is a very crucial place in my journey, by the way. The reason it's so crucial is how I respond at this point is going to determine whether or not I am successful in the end. How I respond, it's not how I respond to the highs that's going to determine my success. It's how I respond to the lows.